Okay, I said there are four types of drivers. I was talking about JDBC. JDBC is a specification. Why JDBC? Can you tell me the answer? I discussed on last Friday. Why JDBC?
There was ODBC before. ODBC will be different for
ODBC is not in Java, so they wrote another specification JDBC. Okay, if I ask you why ODBC? ODBC is particular to particular database? No, you're getting. ODBC is API in C++. Okay. But now my question is, why ODBC? When we have MySQL database vendor, they will be giving MySQL API. Oracle will have their own API. SQL Server will have their own API. Every database will be having their own APIs, right? Then why this ODBC API again? Suppose if ODBC is not there at the time, if I am using MySQL, if I want to write a client program which will talk to MySQL server, I need to use MySQL specific API, right? Tomorrow if I want to shift to Oracle, same code will not work, because this code is using MySQL API. Again I need to change the whole code and write the client using Oracle API. So my client code is database specific, right? Because my client is using either MySQL API or Oracle API. Then Microsoft introduced ODBC, Open Database Transfer, ODBC API. Now my client program uses ODBC API, right? ODBC API, if you are using, then the vendors might have provided drivers, right? Oracle has Oracle driver for ODBC, MySQL driver for. So you make calls on ODBC API. ODBC calls are converted to native calls by driver, right? So now if I am using ODBC in my application, ODBC API in my application, what I can do is, what I have achieved is vendor independence, right? Today if I am using MySQL, what is my client code using? ODBC API. Tomorrow if I want to use Oracle API, my client will be my client code will be still using ODBC, right? So why ODBC is for vendor independence. So I am today using MySQL, and tomorrow if I want to use Oracle, yes, the code need not change, right? Then when ODBC is there, why JDBC then? Because ODBC is just C++ API, right? And we are writing a Java client. Can we invoke C++ code through Java? Yes, it is possible by using something called as JNI, Java Native API. It's possible, but why to write all the native code in my Java? So they gave another specification called as JDBC, right? Now remember, I will be using the word API from now onwards many times, not only JDBC. I will be introducing a lot of APIs. Whenever I say API, remember, keep in mind, API specification. What is a specification? Specification means, specification says some rules to be followed, right? JDBC is a specification. That means it says the database vendors have to implement this specification. So MySQL has an implementation of JDBC specification. What is the implementation? MySQL driver. Oracle has JDBC specification implementation. That is the Oracle driver, right? Along with specification, whenever you say remember, they will be giving you all the interfaces to be implemented. Along with specification, interface will come. They just specify these are the interfaces to be implemented. The vendors will implement. Right? Specification means they will just give interfaces and then they will just give some common set of rules to be followed by the vendors. So when they are developing the drivers, they will be following the rules given by this specification, right? So for a client who is using, client will just prepare references of those interfaces in our program. In my program, see here, connection is a interface. Implementation will be using the implementation given by the driver class. That will be getting time, right? So the advantage of any API is to make us vendor independent. Any API. Tomorrow, maybe day after tomorrow, I'll introduce you some of the APIs. Whenever APIs are there, that means they are there to make us vendor independent. Okay. So now, once you understood clearly about what is JDBC specification, I'll tell you there are different types of drivers. Type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4. We have used type 4 driver till now. Let me introduce you to type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4. Discuss advantages and disadvantages. Among all the drivers, I will say that type 4 is the best driver. Let's see why. So I'll just show you this here. Type 1 driver is also called as JDBC, ODBC, bridge driver. Driver means it is implementing JDBC, implementing the interfaces for the name. Okay, the JDBC, ODBC bridge driver. This is the driver. You will be keeping your driver on the client machine. Right? If you don't have a driver, you cannot run your program. So your client machine, your client program is here. It is making calls on the driver. They are converted to ODBC calls. ODBC driver, what it will do? It will convert the ODBC calls to vendor library calls. That means if I am in MySQL, the calls on ODBC driver will be converted to MySQL specific calls. And then the vendor library will talk to the database. So this was the first type of driver which was present in olden days. When JDBC was introduced, immediately they came up with this because by the time JDBC was introduced, ODBC was already popular, right? So they thought, okay, ODBC is already popular. There are already drivers, ODBC drivers. So we'll write one driver on top of ODBC, which will convert JDBC calls to ODBC calls. So this JDBC ODBC bridge driver will convert JDBC calls to ODBC calls. What the ODBC driver will do? It will convert ODBC calls to the vendor library calls. The vendor library will talk to. This is the flow of control whenever you invoke a method on your JDBC API call. So the disadvantages, why too many conversions? JDBC calls are converted to ODBC is converted. Vendor library, performance is not good. It was a driver which was in earlier days. So we don't use JDBC, ODBC bridge driver anymore. The next type of driver is type 2 driver, or we call it as native API or partly Java driver. This driver is partly written in Java and is having some native calls. While implementing this driver, they have done some native API code also. That's why this driver is also called as native API or partly Java driver. Here, client will make calls on this driver. Driver will directly convert it to vendor library calls, right? So this driver is written in Java, right? But it is internally using native API calls. It's calling C++ code from code, native calls. So this is making directly a call to vendor library, and vendor library will talk to, right? So this is better than type 1 driver, because there Jdbc calls are converted to ODBC, then ODBC calls are converted to native. Better than type 1, type 2 driver, but still there is a problem. The problem is the vendor library should be present on your machine. What is this vendor library? Whenever you install Oracle, suppose if you have installed Oracle on your machine, there will be two things: Oracle server installation, client installation. If you do client installation on your machine, then along with that installation, the client libraries will be installed on your machine, right? If you don't do client installation on your machine, vendor library is not present on client machine, so you cannot use type 2 driver, or even type 1 also should have vendor library, right? Suppose if my server, this is my server, and if your computer does not have Oracle client installation, you cannot talk to this Oracle server by using type 1 and type 2, right? Then that is a disadvantage. Advantage is it's better than type 1, but the disadvantage is still it should have vendor library. The client installation should be done on the machine. Oracle client, database client has to be installed. Now coming to type 3. In type 3 driver is also called as net protocol or all Java driver. This driver is purely written in Java. Type 2 was not purely written in Java, it was having some native API calls. This does not have any native code, it is a pure Java driver, right? When using this driver on client machine, you need not have the vendor library. Means on the client machine you will not install the database client, right? Even if your computer is plain, you can use it. But this driver will not directly interact with database, right? You need a middleware server. On this middleware server, again the client library should be present, right? So when you are using this driver, you say connect to the another middleware server on which vendor library is present. Then this vendor library, this middleware server will talk to, right? Here one advantage is on the client machine, there is no need to use the database. There is no need to install the database client, but we require another middleware server on which the vendor library has to be installed. The client library has to be installed. So the call is not directly going to database. This is one disadvantage of it, right? Now, once you understood type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4, the last driver, see here, the last driver is also called as native protocol or all Java driver. So here it is not invoking the native library at all, right? Whenever I say database server, it will be listening on some port, and if two client and server has to communicate, there should be some protocol, right? Server has to understand what client is saying, and server will be sending a response. Client has to understand what server is saying. That means there should be some protocol between them, right? So what this type 4 driver will do is it will open a socket connection to database and will send request using the particular protocol. They will make, client will make a request, this driver will make a request using that protocol by opening socket connection, and the driver server will do the right. So when using type 4 driver, that's why it's called native protocol. It will use a protocol as per the database server. Suppose if I am using my MySQL database server, the protocol for MySQL is different, the protocol for Oracle will be different. So driver will take care to use which protocol and how it will communicate with server by establishing a socket communication, right? But the other 3 drivers, were they establishing socket communication? No. They will be calling vendor library. Vendor library will establish socket communication. They will, if you take care to talk to database, right? Type 4 does not require any one of them. It will directly contact the database server and will be using the native protocol, right? So among all, we understood that type 4 is best because directly communicates with server and no need of vendor library to be present on the vendor. Right? Any doubts? The next thing which I want to tell is suppose if I am firing, if I want to insert 100 employees, here I showed you how to insert 1 employee. Suppose if I want to insert 100 employees, what I need to do? I need to call statement.execute update 100 times for various queries. Suppose if I am using prepared statement like this, I think if you, yeah, see here, what is this method doing? This code, is it inserting n number of employees? I am getting the entries from map. If you remove the problem, from the map it is getting all employees and it is inserting all the employees into database. So what am I doing? In a loop, for each employee I am setting the values 1, 2, 3, 4 for the special marks and then execute update. So if I want to insert 100 employees, execute update is called 100 times. Whenever I say execute update, the query goes to database, executes, comes back. So how many times the data is being exchanged between server and client? 100 times. Will it not be good if the data exchange is happening only once? The network traffic will be reduced, right? Performance also will be. So what I want to do is, I want to fire some statements in a batch statement. I want all the inserts to go at once, instead of going one by one. I want all the inserts or updates to go at once. So how to do it? See here, on statement object, I can say statement dot add batch. So what I did? What am I doing here? For each employee, I am setting the values. I am saying add. So add batch will be called 100 times if there are 100 employees. So for each time I will say add batch, but I didn't say execute update. Then after the for loop, what I will do is I will say statement dot execute batch. That's all. Whenever I say add batch, the query is not going to database. In memory, the queries are added to batch in memory. Then when I say execute batch, all the 100 insert queries will go at a time. And they all will be fired. So this is how to fire batch executes, batch updates, batch statements. The only single change is don't call execute update every time. Just add them to back and finally call execute batch. The next thing after talking about batch is, the next requirement is, the rule is either all 100 employees should be inserted or none of them should be inserted. What is the transaction in database? Tell me. What do you mean by transaction in database? Okay, suppose if I'm doing only inserts, then can I start a transaction, end a transaction? Huh? What is the meaning of a transaction? You think you might have studied in databases, right? What is acid? Acid. What is it? Oh, you are going to that acid. In database there is something called as acid properties. Atomicity, consistency, and what is the isolation, durability. Every transaction will have acid properties. You might have learned this, right? Then what is transaction? Of course, correct. But then theoretically correct. Not mandatory. Some set of instructions to be treated as a unit. A unit of work is called as transaction. Let me tell an example. I am transferring my bank. I am trying to transfer some 10,000 from my account to one of my friend's account. Right? Transferring funds online. So, what are the steps to be done for transfer? Suppose if I am trying to transfer 10,000. So first, whenever I click on the button transfer, what is the code that should execute? It should check whether 10,000 balance is there first in my account. Yeah, if it is there, then deduct 10,000 from my account. Minus my account balance minus. Then add that amount to my friend's account. Right? What will happen? My amount is deducted from my account, 10,000, but while adding it to his account, some problem occurred, like connection failed. Database connection failed. Some exception, I got some exception while executing some logic. So amount is deducted from my account, but not added to my friend's account. What will happen? It's a transaction failed. Suppose my amount is deducted, it is not created, right? Suppose if that is committed means amount is deducted but my friend's account is not created. So what will happen? I need to go around the bank for at least 1 month to get my amount back. It's a big process. Even if I call customer care also, they will say you have to wait. So what the bank will do is, if all these steps are not done properly, if any one of the step fails, then they will roll back the whole transaction. So here in this case, what is transaction? Checking balance, deducting from my account and adding into account should be treated as single unit. If any one of these steps fails, everything should be rolled back to previous state. Like after deducting my account, if my friend's account is not getting created, the amount deducted from my account should be rolled back. Again should be created, right? So that is the meaning of a transaction. Now here in this case, for simplicity, what I want is, my rule is, either all 100 employees should be inserted. If any one of the employee insertion fails, I want everything to be rolled back, right? So what I should do? Simple. By default, for JDBC, whenever I start a connection, and if I am firing queries by using that connection, if I am firing queries by using the connection, the queries will be committed immediately. By default, auto commit is true for JDBC, right? But I don't want that to be committed immediately. So what I should do is I should say connection dot set auto commit to false. Set auto commit will be a boolean. I am saying don't commit automatically. Whenever I fire a query, don't commit it immediately, right? Then after doing this, what I'll do is I'll keep everything in a try catch block. In a separate try catch. Now what will happen? If no exceptions after the for loop at the end of the catch try block, here what I'll do is I'll say connection dot commit. If exception occurs, we'll go to catch block. Here I'll say connection dot roll back. So while executing all these statements, if any one of them fails, definitely come to catch block. I'm saying roll back. If none of the exceptions are thrown after this, you come here, commit is executed. I'm saying the database to commit. Right? Now, you may have a simple question. Let us take a simple scenario. Don't see this batch. Just tell me what will happen if I say statement dot execute query. Now tell me. Here I got a prepared statement and I said auto commit false. Then for each employee I am calling execute update, execute. Here I am calling execute update, right? I said auto commit false, but in the loop, let's say there are 100 employees, I am calling. Do you think that query is fired on database? Okay? But what will happen if I say commit? But then what about, suppose if there are 100 employees, you are saying 19 employees will not be counted, only 100 employees will be counted. What is happening? Correct. What he says is, this is the database server. How many clients can connect? N number of client applications can be connecting to the same database. Whenever a client is connecting, a session is started for a user. Right? N number of users connected. For every user, a session is started on the database. For every connection, for every user, the server will be maintaining a separate memory area. For every connection to database, server will be maintaining a separate connection area, separate work area, I said. Here you said auto commit as false. When you say auto commit as false, you are firing the query. The query will execute. Insertion is done, but the inserted data will not be kept inside the original table. It will not be kept inside the original table. The inserted data will be kept inside the work area of that particular user. Right? Is there any name given to this memory area? Work area, some name is there. I think you will be able to. Some name is there for that work area I am saying, but the work area is not a correct name. Some name is there for this area where the data for that session is stored. Right? So, whenever you are firing an insert query, the data for the insert query is kept inside the user's work area. Right? But this is the original table, employee table. The data will not be kept inside the original table until you say commit. If you say rollback, let's assume you have inserted some 99 employees and 100th employee insertion failed, exception is thrown. Then it will come to catch block and you are saying connection.rollback. What it will do? It will clear all the data present inside the work area. Suppose if I say commit, it is executed. Then what will happen? The data present in the user work area will be committed to the original table. Right? Until you say commit, the data will not go to the original table. Right? Now, I have a simple query. You have inserted 100, you are trying to insert 100 employees. You have inserted 90 employees. Let's assume in the database already 10 employees are there. Sorry, 50 employees are there in the database already. Now you have inserted 90 employees, but not yet committed. Right? If you fire a select query, same user, if he fires a select query after inserting 90, not yet committed, how many rows will he see? No, but he has inserted 90. Huh. But I expect, I have inserted just now, I expect that I should see. Right? So the data in this work area of that particular user will be seen only by that user. So suppose if there are 50 rows in this table already and if you have inserted 90 rows, they will be inside your work area but not yet committed. But if you, the same user, fires a select query, he will be able to see all the data. But if other user, the other client, if he fires a select query, he will be seeing only 50 because you have not yet committed. If you commit, the data will be seen by all. If you have not yet committed, so that data, whatever you have done, will be seen by you only. If you fire select query, you will be able to see 90 plus 50, 140. Others will not see your data until you commit. Right? That's the meaning of a transaction. In Jdbc, coming to Jdbc, it's very simple. To start a transaction, what you have to do? Connection dot set auto commit false. To commit a transaction, connection dot commit. To roll back a transaction, connection dot right. Suppose if I don't say connection dot set auto commit false, if I don't say like this, what will happen? Whenever I fire a query, whenever a user is firing the query, auto commit is true. That means the data will be directly inside the table. Instead of going to the memory user's work area, you directly go to the table. Auto commit is true. Automatically to be committed. So transactions, you cannot use transactions, right? So if you want to start a transaction, connection dot set auto commit as false, automatically it should not be committed until you will say commit or right, out.
The other user is in the actual table.
In the actual table there are 50 rows, tell me now.
50 rows. And one of the row is actual table is exactly same as in the other user or other user first. But it
Data. See, how can you say that two rows are equivalent in database based on
all the
primary key. Table will be having a primary key. You will be setting a primary key. If this user he is trying to insert a row whose primary key is already existing, then he will definitely get an exception.
But he will not be committed.
He'll get an exception. Once he gets exception, it's coming to catch block and it's rolling back. The whole transaction will roll back. At there itself, when it is adding it to the memory location, work area itself, it checks whether any constraint violations are there. If no constraint violations, then only the data will be stored inside the work area. If constraint violations are there, when the query is spread, then only you will get an exception. Any other doubts? Simple. I just wanted to know how many columns are there in the result set. See here, this is select query. I got a result set, is it? But in this result set, how many columns are there? What is the query? Select star in employee table. In my employee table, actually, 4 columns are there: employee ID, name, city, country. I know that it is 4. But if the table is not known to you, if you fire a query, you want to know how many columns are there, and what is the name of each column, what is the type of each column, right? You want to know about the result set. Data about result set is called as metadata. About something is called as metadata. Data about result set is also called as result set metadata. So now I want to know about the metadata of result set. So how to do is simple. Result set dot get metadata. It will give you an object called as result set metadata, by using which you will be able to access result set metadata. Right? Once you get result set metadata, you want to know how many columns are there. I say result set metadata dot get column count. Get column count will give me how many columns are there in that query, right? So I'll just print it. Int column count is right, and I'll just say system.out.21 column count. Now I should see, oh, this is this one, huh? Oh, here I am getting, oh, why 4? Okay, this select them only. I got 4, yes, correct. But I want to know the column name of second column. At second column, what is there? Name is there. I want to get the name of that column. So result set metadata dot get column name at which index? At second index, second column. I'll just write system.out.println. So I am expecting it to print name. EMP name is the column name in my database, right? So just I want you to understand, if you want any information about result set, the object is result set metadata. There are a lot of other methods in result set metadata. Just keep in your mind, if you want any information about result set, like column count or column types or column names, the object which you have to use is result set metadata. And how to get the reference? Result set object dot get, right? Then now I have a similar question. My same program could have connected to Oracle database also or SQL Server also. The only change will be driver name will change, URL will change. Right? Here I have hard code in this program. I could have taken it from command line also. Right? So dynamically, I don't know to which driver I am connecting to or to which database I am connecting. I want to know which database to which I am connected. Right? I want to know the details of the connection of the database to which I am connected. So I want a metadata about database. I want some details about the database to which I am connected. Right? So data about database is called as database metadata. How to get it? Connection object dot get metadata. It will give you database metadata. Oh, see, I have imported wrong thing. I should never import from com.mysql. I should import always from java.sql package. Then see here, database metadata object dot get get database product name will give me either MySQL, if I'm connected to MySQL, or Oracle if I'm connected to Oracle, or SQL Server if I'm connected to database. Product name will give me the database name. Database major version, minor version. Guess what is this? What is the version of SQL Server you have installed? 5.5 or 5.2? 5.0 dot something like this. 5.5 is the major version. Whatever is coming after dot is the minor version. So you can get the database major version, minor version. Right? So like that, if you want any information about database, you can go through it. Right? Database driver name, driver version. Right? So just remember, if you want information about database, the object to be used is database. Any other doubts till now? So now let me give you some small, let me show you. See, in this case of add batch, what is happening? Whenever I say add batch, is the request, is the query going to database here? Now in memory, the data for that query is stored in memory. Nothing is going to server. Whenever you say execute batch, 100 inserts are fired. 100 insert queries are sent to database. Right? So when first insert is done, the data for that insert is kept here. Second insert is kept here. Until is a commit, it will not go to the original table. But the only thing is, all the 100 queries are sent to database at once, but they will be fired in some order. First query, second query. So whenever a query is executed, they are stored in database workspace work area. Right? Here all the concept is same, but only thing is, instead of sending one query to server, they are sending all queries at once. They are also stored inside the work area until they are committed. Any other doubts?